The air in orbital nexus, they hummed with the chatter of 100 species. The ring-shaped station rotated slowly, its artificial gravity keeping traders from across the galaxy anchored to its metallic floors. Humans moved through the crowds like ghosts, smaller, softer, and far fewer in number than most. Their ships, when they docked, were modest things, functional, unassuming. Captain Elias Kane adjusted the collar of his civilian jacket as he walked through the bazaar. The fabric itched. He hated playing diplomat, but Earth Command had insisted. "We need allies, not more enemies," they'd said. Behind him, Lieutenant Mara Voss scanned the crowd with cybernetic eyes, her fingers twitching near the concealed plasma pistol at her hip. "Relax," Kane muttered. "We're here to talk, not shoot." Voss didn't blink. "Tell that to the Vaethari." A ripple moved through the crowd. The sea of aliens parted as a group of chitinous figures approached, their 4 arms clicking in unison. The Vaethari delegation had arrived. Their leader, a towering specimen with emerald, green armor plating, stepped forward. The translator implant in Kane's ear crackled to life, converting the chittering language into something resembling words. "By decree of the Hive Queen," the Vaethari announced, "all unregistered human vessels in this sector are hereby claimed as salvageable property under our ancient laws." Silence fell over the bazaar. Kane felt the weight of every alien eye turning toward him. He kept his voice steady. "That is theft." The Vaethari's mandibles spread in what might have been a smile. "No, it is law." A human engineer, Riley, shoved his way forward. His jumpsuit was grease, stained, his hands still smudged from working on his ship's engines. "Like hell it is. You can't just take our ships because you feel like it." One of the Vaethari guards moved faster than Kane could track. A spiked limb lashed out, slamming Riley to the ground. The young engineer gasped as another guard pinned him with a clawed foot. "Unregistered property has no voice," the Vaethari leader said. Kane took a step forward, but a massive hand clamped down on his shoulder. He turned to see a Gorvax enforcer looming over him, its armored plates glinting under the station, lights the guild's peacekeepers. "Stand down, human," the Gorvax rumbled. "The Vaethari have rights under their customs." Voss's hand was on her weapon now. "And what about our rights?" The Gorvax shrugged. "Your kind has no standing fleet, no real power. Accept it." Riley struggled against the Vaethari's grip. His wrist comm crackled, an open channel, broadcasting to every human ship in the sector. "They think we're just things to be taken." He spat. Then the Vaethari activated their stasis field. Riley's body went rigid, his face frozen in defiance as they dragged him away. Kane watched, his jaw clenched so tight it ached. The crowd murmured, some species looking away, others watching with cold curiosity. The Kasari trader, Zillis, edged closer, her bioluminescent markings pulsing with unease. "You should let this go," she whispered. "The Vaethari have never lost a war, their fleets darken stars." Kane didn't answer. He tapped his comm. "Chen, get me a secure line to the Ironclad." Dr. Liam Chen's voice came through, calm as ever. "Already done, Captain. They're waiting for your orders." Voss leaned in. "What now?" Kane's smile was razor thin. "Now we remind the galaxy what happens when you steal from humans." The station's alarms began to wail somewhere in the docking bays. Human engineers were powering up their ships, and far beyond the station's fragile walls, the USN Ironclad prepared for war. The command deck of the USN Ironclad hummed with suppressed energy, the dim red battle lighting casting long shadows across the faces of the crew. Captain Elias Kane stood before the main display, his scarred hands clasped behind his back as the distress call from Nexus. Faye played for the third time. The young engineer Riley's voice crackled through the speakers, tight with fear before cutting off abruptly. The silence afterward was heavier than the void outside the hull. Lieutenant Mara Voss slammed her cybernetic fist against the tactical console, the metal fingers denting the reinforced surface. "They're treating us like cargo," she spat. Her enhanced eyes glowed faintly in the low light, scanning the fleet readiness report scrolling across her screen. "We should burn their slaver nests to ash." Dr. Liam Chen adjusted his glasses, the only human in the room who didn't look like he was seconds from violence. "Psych profiles indicate the Vathari operate on a strict caste hierarchy," he said calmly. "To them, taking unclaimed humans isn't just legal. It's their divine right. They genuinely don't understand why wed object." Kane turned slowly, his gaze sweeping across his officers. "Then well-educate them." He tapped a command into his wrist console, and the main display shifted to show the bloated form of a Gorvax Guild enforcer, its 4 tusked mouths moving in unison as it delivered the official verdict. "Per Galactic Commerce Guild Statute Fey," the enforcer rumbled, "the Vathari claim falls under recognized salvage customs. No military response is authorized. Any human vessels resisting collection will be fined for disrupting trade harmony." A chorus of curses erupted across the deck. Kane silenced them with a raised hand. "And if we ignore your ruling?" The Gorvax laugh sounded like grinding boulders. "With what fleet your pitiful armadas couldn't." Kane cut the transmission. The deck fell silent except for the steady beep of long-range sensors, picking up Vathari drive signatures near the border colonies. Voss brought up a star map, her voice tight. "They're already moving. Scanners show 6 Hive, tenders heading for New Brisbane, probably hitting the orbital farms first. Easy pickings." Chen frowned at the data. "They're not even bothering to hide. This is a test. They want to see if we'll actually fight." The captain's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Then let's give them an answer." He opened a ship-wide channel, his voice echoing through every corridor of the ironclad. "All hands, battle stations. Set course for the Vathari border at maximum burn. Today, we remind the galaxy what happens when you steal from humans." As the crew erupted into motion, a new figure stepped onto the command deck, Zillis, the Kasari trader, her bioluminescent markings pulsing with unease. "Captain Kane," she said, her voice melodic but strained, "you must reconsider. The Vathari have never lost a war. Their fleets darken entire star systems when provoked." Kane didn't pause as he strapped into his command chair. First time for everything. Zillis grabbed his arm, her usually calm demeanor cracking. "You don't understand. Their hive ships are living warships grown over centuries. Your ironclad is powerful, but against the full might of..." Voss shoved between them, her cybernetic hand gripping Zillis' wrist. "Listen close, Glowbug, that salvage they just took. That was my little brother's best friend. So unless you want to learn how human boarding parties treat neutral observers who get in their way, I suggest you find a corner to hide in." The Kasari recoiled, her markings flashing crimson. Chen gently guided her away. "You're operating on outdated data," he told her. "The Vathari have never fought humans before. That makes us the unknown variable in their calculations." Alarms blared as the ironclad's engines roared to full power, the inertial dampeners straining as the massive dreadnought pivoted toward the jump point. Kane studied the tactical display, watching the blinking red icons of Vathari raiders converging on human settlements. "Helm," he said quietly. "Plot an intercept course for the largest concentration of hostiles. Weapons, load all railgun batteries with armor. Piercing spikes. I want the first volley to leave an impression." Voss grinned, her fingers dancing across the fire control systems. "Oh, they'll remember this, right before they die." Zillis whispered something in her native tongue, the words translating as, "You're all insane," through the ship's lingua comp. Chen adjusted his headset, monitoring the Vathari communications chatter. "They've detected our approach," he reported. "Their commanders are laughing, sir. They think we're coming to negotiate surrender terms." The bridge crew exchanged glances. Someone snorted. Kane leaned forward in his chair, his voice barely above a whisper, but carrying through the entire deck. Then let's introduce ourselves properly. The ironclad's engines flared as it hurled itself toward the jump point, leaving the safety of guild space behind. Behind them, unnoticed in the chaos, Zillis activated a clandestine comm channel, her markings cycling through frantic colors as she whispered to her fellow Kasari. Alert all trading clans, the humans aren't running, they're hunting. As the stars blurred into the streaks of FTL travel, the last thing the bridge crew heard before the jump was the sound of Voss chambering around in her sidearm. Property, my ass, she muttered. Time to teach these bugs the meaning of regret. The ironclad vanished into the void, carrying the promise of fire and retribution in its wake. The void between stars was never truly silent. The USN ironclad drifted in the black, her engines cold, her weapons hot. Captain Elias Kane watched the tactical display as the Vathuri slaver convoy lumbered into range. 3 bulbous hive ships, their chitinous hulls pockmarked with organic weapon nodules, escorted by a dozen smaller skitter craft. They moved with the arrogance of predators who'd never known resistance. All stations, combat readiness, Kane said, his voice calm. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. Lieutenant Mara Voss's fingers danced across her console, her cybernetic eye glowing faintly as she calculated firing solutions. Railguns charged, plasma lances primed, boarding teams standing by. Dr. Liam Chen adjusted his headset, listening to the Vathari comm chatter. They're not even scanning properly, he murmured. Their transmissions are all cargo manifests and mating rituals. They think this sector belongs to them. Kane's scarred face twisted into a grin. Let's correct that misconception. Voss, light them up. The ironclad's railguns fired first. Tungsten slugs the size of ground cars punched through the lead hive ship's armor at Faye. The vessel didn't so much explode as disintegrate, its bioengineered hull tearing apart like rotten fruit. Chunks of chitin and viscera spun into the void, trailing green ichor, the remaining ships scattered in panic. Skitter craft banked wildly, their organic thrusters flaring as they tried to evade too late. The ironclad's plasma lances carved through them, turning sleek predators into expanding clouds of superheated gas. Boarding parties away, Voss announced. Across the ironclad's hull, armored airlocks hissed open. Power-armored Marines launched themselves toward the surviving hive, ships on jump jets, plasma cutters glowing in the dark. Inside the second hive ship, the Vathari crew chittered in confusion. Their mandibles clacked as they scrambled to man their weapon nodes. The ship's living corridors pulsed with bioluminescent panic. Then the humans came through the walls. Sergeant Ramirez's squad cut their way in with thermite charges. The explosion sent Vathari warriors skittering back, their forearms waving in alarm. The Marines advanced in perfect formation, their armor sealed against the hive, ship's toxic atmosphere. Plasma rifles barked, turning chitinous warriors into smoking husks. Clear the bridge, Ramirez ordered. His squad moved like a single organism, covering angles, firing in controlled bursts. The Vathari captain reared up on its hind legs, its abdomen quivering as it spat acid. The glob struck Private Kowalski's chestplate and sizzled harmlessly against the reinforced ceramite. Ramirez put 3 plasma bolts through the captain's thorax. It collapsed, its limbs twitching. Damn bugs never learn, Kowalski muttered, kicking the corpse aside. Back on the ironclad, Dr. Chen monitored the boarding action through the Marine's helmet feeds. Fascinating, he murmured. Their communications are pure chaos. They keep repeating the same phrase, property does not resist. Kane leaned back in his command chair. Play me their command channel. The bridge speakers crackled with chittering Vathari speech, translated by the ship's AI. How are they boarding us? A panicked voice demanded. No species breaches hive. Ships, another answered. The property is defective. It must be purged. Voss snorted. They're not scared. They're offended. On the view screen, the third hive ship attempted to flee. Its organic engines pulsed frantically, but the ironclad's targeting computers locked on. Finish it, Kane ordered. The railguns fired again. This time, the hive ship's spine ruptured, splitting it neatly in half. Atmosphere and crew vented into space in a grotesque fountain. A single skitter craft survived, its hull scorched but intact. It tried to limp away, its thrusters sputtering. Kane held up a hand. Let it go. I want them to report back to their queen. The bridge crew watched as the crippled craft wobbled into the distance. Dr. Chen removed his headset. They'll call this an aberration. A fluke. They can't conceive of humans as a threat. Kane stood, walking to the view screen. The wreckage of the Vathari convoy drifted before him, illuminated by the distant glow of a red giant. Then we'll keep teaching the lesson until they learn. He turned to his crew. Set course for the Vathari border. Next stop, their homeworld. As the ironclad's engines flared to life, the last surviving skitter, craft's transmission crackled across the comms. The property fights back, the Vathari pilot whispered, its voice trembling. The property kills. Kane smiled. Damn right it does. The ironclad shuddered as the proximity alarm screamed. Lieutenant Voss's cybernetic eyes flickered with targeting data as the massive shape emerged from warp. Contact, bearing 027. It is, her voice caught. Sir, it is the Dominance. Captain Kane's knuckles whitened around his command chair. The view screen filled with the grotesque silhouette of the Vathari hive ship, its organic hull pulsing with bioluminescent veins. It dwarfed the ironclad like a leviathan beside a minnow. Chitinous spires bristled with weapon pods, each one large enough to swallow a human frigate whole. Dr. Chen's fingers danced across his console, reading multiple energy spikes. They're powering weapons. His voice remained calm, but his eyes were wide. Captain, that ship shouldn't exist outside of intelligence reports. The Vathari haven't deployed a hive ship in 3 centuries. A crackling transmission flooded the bridge. The image of the Vathari High Queen filled the screen, her multi-faceted eyes gleaming. 4 spiked arms unfolded from her thorax as she spoke, her translated voice dripping with contempt. Humans, you have slain my children. For this, your species will be harvested. Your worlds will be silent. The channel cut abruptly. Kane didn't blink. Voss status on those mines. Primed and ready, sir, but we'll only get one shot at this. Her fingers flew over her console. Problem, their point defenses are shredding our drones before they can deploy. The ironclad rocked violently as the first plasma volley struck. Emergency lights bathed the bridge in crimson. A console exploded, sending a crewman sprawling. Kane grabbed the comm. All hands brace for evasive. Helm, get us into that asteroid field. Now. The dreadnought banked hard, its engines screaming. Behind them, the Dominance loomed closer, its organic thrusters flaring. Dr. Chen gripped his station as another impact shook the ship. They're herding us, Captain. This is exactly what they want. Kane bared his teeth. No, Doctor. This is exactly what we want. He tapped his comm. Engineering, give me everything you've got. Voss, signal the Stormbreaker. Tell them to light the fuse. The ironclad plunged into the asteroid belt, its hull scraping against spinning rock. The Dominance followed without hesitation, its massive bulk crushing smaller asteroids to dust. Voss watched the tactical display, her jaw clenched. Sir, they're still gaining 30 seconds until weapons range. Kane leaned forward. Wait for it. A new alert blared. Dr. Chen's head snapped up. Energy surged from the Stormbreaker. They've activated the beacon. Deep within the asteroid field, The human stealth frigate Stormbreaker unleashed its payload, a modified warp beacon, pulsing with enough energy to light up every Vathari sensor. The Dominance shuddered as its targeting systems locked onto the sudden signal, its weapon pod swiveling toward the distraction. "Now!" Kane roared. Voss slammed her fist onto the console. Across the asteroid field, 100 nuclear mines detonated in perfect sequence. The shockwave rippled through space, turning asteroids into molten shrapnel. The Dominance's organic armor buckled as the firestorm engulfed it, its outer layers vaporizing in the atomic inferno. The bridge crew cheered as the Hive ship listed violently, its bioluminescent lights flickering. Dr. Chen's monitor flashed with damage reports. Direct hits across their ventral side. Their primary thrusters are offline. Kane didn't smile. Finish it. All batteries fire at will. The ironclad's railguns thundered, tungsten rounds punching through the Dominance's exposed innards. Plasma lances carved glowing wounds across its hull, spilling streams of green ichor into the void. The Hive ship's distress signals blared across every frequency, a chorus of chittering screams. A final transmission crackled through. The High Queen's image flickered, her exoskeleton cracked and bleeding. "This is impossible. You are weak. You have no empire, no hive, mind. How can you defeat us?" Kane leaned toward the screen, his voice quiet. "Because we don't fight for queens or hives. We fight for each other." He nodded to Voss. "End it." The ironclad's spinal, mounted plasma cannon charged, its hum building to a deafening whine. The beam lanced out, piercing the Dominance's core for a heartbeat. The Hive ship glowed from within like a dying star. Then it shattered, its fragments scattering across the asteroid field like embers. Silence settled over the bridge. Dr. Chen exhaled slowly. "They never even considered we'd fight back, did they?" Voss checked her scanners. "No other contacts, the rest of their fleet's bugging out." She smirked. "Guess they finally learned." Kane stood staring at the wreckage. "No, Lieutenant. This was just the first lesson." He turned to the crew. "Set course for the Vathari homeworld. Time to teach them the second." The ironclad shuddered as another volley of plasma splashed against its reinforced hull. Warning klaxons blared through the corridors, but Captain Kane stood steady on the command deck, his eyes locked on the tactical display. The Vathari Hive, ship Dominance, loomed ahead, its grotesque organic form pulsing with sickly green light. Chunks of its outer armor floated in space, torn away by the nuclear mines. But the beast wasn't dead yet. "Status on the breach," Kane barked, his voice cutting through the chaos. Lieutenant Voss tapped at her console, cybernetic fingers flying. "Marines are through the ventral tier heavy resistance, but they're pushing toward the Queen's chamber." Dr. Chen leaned over the comms station, his face pale under the flickering emergency lights. "Their communications are chaotic. The Hive mind is fracturing. They've never lost a queen before." Kane allowed himself a grim smile. "Then let's introduce them to the concept." Inside the Dominance, Sergeant Reyes led the boarding team through corridors that looked more like the inside of a living creature than a ship. The walls pulsed with viscous fluid, and the air stank of ammonia and rotting meat. His squad moved in tight formation, their power armor sealing them from the toxic environment. "Contact left," one Marine shouted as a group of Vathari warriors scuttled from a side passage, their chitinous limbs clicking against the organic floor. Plasma fire erupted, lighting the corridor in flashes of blue and green. Reyes didn't flinch as one of the aliens collapsed at his feet, its forearms twitching. "Keep moving," he ordered. "Queen's chamber is Fey meters ahead." A distorted voice crackled over the comms. "Sergeant, we've got a problem." It was Corporal Hale, leading the secondary team. "They're sealing the tunnels behind us. We're getting cut off." Reyes cursed. "Fall back to our position. We'll punch through together." Back on the ironclad, Voss watched the tactical feed with growing tension. The hive ship was reacting like a wounded animal, sealing passages, rerouting defenders. Captain, they're herding our teams into kill zones. Kane's jaw tightened. Tell Reyes to fall back. We'll blast a new path. Dr. Chen shook his head. No, wait. Look at their movements. They're not just defending, they're panicking. The Queen's trying to isolate herself. Voss' eyes narrowed. Then we don't let her. She slammed a command into the console. Reyes, new orders. Blow the bio. Seals. Burn through. Reyes grinned inside his helmet as the shaped charges detonated, tearing through the organic bulkheads in a shower of steaming ichor. His marines advanced, cutting down the last of the Queen's guard. The chamber beyond was a nightmare of pulsating membranes and towering spires of bone, like growth. And there, at the center, the Vathari High Queen loomed, her massive abdomen twitching as she reared up on her hind legs. You dare, she hissed, her voice a distorted screech through the translation systems. You are property. Property does not defy its masters. Reyes leveled his plasma cutter. Funny, you keep saying that. He fired. The Queen shrieked as the superheated plasma seared through her chitin. Her warriors lunged, but the Marines cut them down with disciplined bursts. Reyes stepped forward, his boots sinking slightly into the spongy floor. You took our people, thought we wouldn't fight back. The Queen's mandibles quivered. You are weak. You have no hive, no unity. How can you defeat us? Behind Reyes, Lieutenant Voss' voice crackled over the comms. Because we don't need a hive, every human you took. They had someone who'd burn the galaxy to get them back. The Queen's remaining limbs spasmed as another plasma bolt tore through her thorax. Reyes didn't wait for her to die. He triggered the demolition charges his team had planted. Ironclad were clear. Light it up. The dominance erupted from within, its organic hull splitting apart as secondary explosions rippled through its structure. On the Ironclad's bridge, Kane watched the feed as the hive. Ship's core detonated, sending a shockwave through the surrounding debris field. Dr. Chen exhaled slowly. They never understood. To them, strength was numbers control. Kane turned away from the dying ship. And now they never will. The last transmission from the Vathari Queen echoed across all frequencies. A final, wordless scream as her empire died with her. Across the galaxy, slaver lords paused. Records were updated. Humans were no longer listed as potential property. They were marked as predators. The Galactic Commerce Guild chamber had never been so silent. Representatives from 100 species sat frozen in their adaptive seating pods. Their appendages limp, their sensory organs locked on the holographic display floating above the central dais. The footage played on loop, the Ironclad's railguns tearing through Vathari bio, ships, the nuclear fireball consuming the dominance, the final transmission of the hive, Queen's scream cutting to static. Zilis, the Kasari trader, clutched the edges of his robe, his bioluminescent markings pulsing erratically. He had warned the humans. He had told them it was suicide. Now his four eyes flicked to the Gorvax enforcer, who had dismissed Captain Kane's protest. The massive, armored alien hadn't moved in 7 minutes. His clawed hands hovered over his console, as if afraid to touch it. A human diplomat stepped forward, not one of the polished core world negotiators the Guild was used to ignoring, but a lean, hard-eyed woman in a black uniform with the Ironclad's insignia on her shoulder. She didn't wait for recognition. She simply activated her own hologram, a star map with the Vathari Empire's former territories blinking red. By the authority of United Earth Sovereign Navy High Command, she said, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade. The Vathari slave colonies in sectors Gamma, Phi through Theta, Phane are hereby liberated. Their surviving warships are to be surrendered within 48 standard hours. Any remaining slaver enclaves will be removed. A Tentacrian delegate finally found its voice. You can't just, we can. The diplomat didn't even look at it. The Vathari declared all unregistered humans property under their own laws that made every ship they took salvage, every life they stole forfeit. She tapped her console. The hologram shifted to show the ironclad in high orbit over the Vathari homeworld, its guns trained on the sprawling hive cities below. By their logic, their empire is now our property. Any objections? The chamber stayed silent. Zilis watched as the Gorvax enforcer slowly retracted his claws. The guild's arbitrators, usually so quick to cite precedent and protocol, stared at their screens. A whisper slithered through the assembled delegates, half fear, half awe. They killed a hive queen, a Threxian murmured to its neighbor. No one has ever done that. The human diplomat heard it. She smiled. Just a little. You're wrong. We've done it before. She turned to leave, then paused. Earth's old histories are full of empires who thought they could take from us. They're also full of ruins. In the back of the chamber, a young Kasari scribe, barely more than a child, tugged at Xylis' sleeve. Why didn't the Vathari understand? It whispered. Why did they think humans wouldn't fight? Zilis watched the human diplomat walk away, her boots clicking against the polished floor. No entourage, no guards. Just one woman, walking alone through a room full of terrified aliens. Because, Zilis said softly, the Vathari only knew slaves. They'd never met owners. On the hologram, the ironclad's guns glowed as they powered down. The message was clear. The war was over. The lesson had been delivered. Across the galaxy, in dark corners where slavers still gathered, data screens flickered with new entries. Species classifications updated. Threat assessments rewritten. Near the top of every list, in bold, unmissable text, humans do not claim. The ruins of the Vathari homeworld stretched below, like a broken carcass. Smoke curled from the shattered spires of their hive. Cities, the once gleaming chitinous towers now blackened husks. The USN Ironclad hung in low orbit, its scarred hull reflecting the orange glow of the burning world beneath. Captain Elias Kane stood on the observation deck, his hands clasped behind his back. The weight of the last weeks pressed on his shoulders, but his jaw remained set. Behind him, Lieutenant Mara Voss adjusted the settings on her cybernetic eye, the lens whirring softly as it zoomed in on the surface. They're calling it the fall of the hive, she said, her voice flat. Guild channels are flooded with reports. Every slaver empire in the quadrant is scrambling to revise their treaties. Kane didn't smile. Good. Dr. Liam Chen stepped forward, his datapad flickering with intercepted transmissions. You should hear what they're saying, Captain. The Kasari are calling it a miracle. The Gorvax have gone silent, and the Vathari survivors. He tapped the screen. They're begging for mercy. A transmission crackled over the comm. Ironclad, this is Guild Overseer Jorvax. The Gorvax's voice lacked its usual arrogance. The Commerce Guild formally recognizes humanity's claim to the Vathari territories. All remaining assets are forfeit to your species. Voss snorted. Took them long enough. Kane turned to the comm. Tell me, Overseer, if we hadn't burned their empire to the ground, would you have cared? Silence, then grudgingly, no. Kane cut the transmission below. The first human shuttles descended through the ash-choked sky. Marines in powered armor moved through the ruins, their boots crunching over broken chitin. They weren't alone. Freed slaves, human and alien alike, emerged from the wreckage. Some wept. Others stared at the sky as if seeing stars for the first time. A group of former captives, their wrists still bearing the marks of Vathari shackles, gathered around a fallen hive spire. One of them, a human woman with sunken eyes, picked up a piece of broken chitin and hurled it at the ruins. The others followed suit, their voices rising in a wordless cry of defiance. Chen watched them, his expression unreadable. They thought we were weak because we didn't act like them, because we didn't have a hive mind or an empire built on chains. He shook his head. That was their mistake. Kane nodded. They forgot something fundamental. Voss crossed her arms. And what is that? That every human you take has someone who'd burn the galaxy to get them back. A new transmission came through, this one from Earth Command. The voice of Admiral Graves crackled over the speakers. Ironclad, be advised. The Council has approved your request for oversight. Provisional government teams are en route to establish order. Kane exhaled. Tell them to bring relief supplies. These people have suffered enough. Voss smirked. Since when did you get soft, Captain? Since I saw what happens when you push humanity too far. The observation deck fell silent. On the surface, the freed slaves had begun to sing, a ragged, hopeful sound that carried even through the vacuum. Somewhere in the ruins, a Vathari survivor scuttled into the shadows, its chittering voice trembling with fear. Chen glanced at his datapad again. You're not going to believe this. The Gorvax just released a new advisory to all guild members. He turned the screen toward them. 2 words dominated the transmission. Humans do not claim. Kane chuckled. Took the words right out of my mouth. Voss leaned against the railing, watching as the first human flags were planted in the ruins below. So what now? Now? Kane turned away from the view, his boots clicking against the deck as he walked toward the door. Now we go home. Let the galaxy remember what happens when you mistake mercy for weakness. Behind him, the burning world grew smaller as the ironclad turned its nose toward the stars. Somewhere in the dark, slaver empires recalculated their odds, and for the first time in history, they decided some prizes weren't worth the cost.